and welcome to First Bite, our Pride of Detroit preview podcast for the upcoming Detroit Lions Week 4 game against the Saints. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the managing editor of PrideofDetroit.com. With me, as always, for the preview podcast is our good friend, managing editor, just head editor? Is that what we're going with?
I prefer senior editor, Jeremy. Editor. But if you were going to give me the reins to the whole website, I was going to be pretty excited because we're going to go right back to Pets of Detroit.
There we go. Speaking of which, my dog is squeaking, so hopefully that doesn't pick up on the mic too much. But you can follow Ryan at Ryan_POD on Twitter. With us, as always, we like to bring in a guest from the opposite side of the field. So this week we tapped over to the Saints. We went over to our good friends at Canal Street Chronicles and got Maddie Hudak, who writes for Canal Street Chronicles and SB Nation. You can find her at Maddie Hudak _94. Maddie, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited about this matchup. I know it's a battle of 1 and 2 teams, but I think both teams are expected to be a little bit better at this point in the season, and maybe they are a little bit better than their record suggests. You know, the Lions are certainly just one play away from being 2-1. The Saints have had kind of a brutal schedule, so maybe things will lighten up once they start playing some easier teams. But let's start with you, Maddie, and talk about the Lions offseason, or the Saints offseason a little bit. Kind of a muted offseason a little bit, not a ton of moves. Obviously, this team coming off a 13-3 season, not a ton of moves necessarily need to be made, you know, aside of from their wild card exit. I don't want to bring up some bad memories, but tell me your overall thoughts about the offseason, maybe some big moves that they made, maybe some underrated moves they made, or maybe you thought they should have made more moves.
So I kind of had the same thought, that it was relatively muted, which I expected, despite our gameplay showing otherwise. We do have a pretty stacked veteran roster. Pretty continuous for the last few seasons. So they were kind of just focused on those key holes everywhere. Originally, I was pretty, as was most people, surprised when we drafted Cesar Ruiz. Definitely wasn't on any of the mock drafts. It was all Patrick Queen and some people wanting Jordan Love. And I didn't even know who they were talking about for the first 2 seconds, so I'm just not a huge college person. But pretty quickly, it made a lot of sense, just like Eric McCoy last year was kind of the same initial reaction, but we lost Max Unger pretty abruptly. And, our O-line, you didn't want to bring up the Vikings game, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. Our O-line was a disaster. Drew is super rushed, and he's not Lamar Jackson. He runs more like Peyton Manning. So he just does not have that luxury, and he's short, so he needs a little bit of time. And time was just not of the essence when we had last year's lineup. So I was pretty happy with that. And I don't mean to speak ill of the injured, but I'm a little excited that Ruiz is going to get more involved now that we lost Andres Pete. He was a lot to blame for a lot of the plays this season. Then the rest of our draft, it was about a bunch of kind of 3rd and 4th rounders. They haven't really shown much of Zach Bond or Adam Trotman, but I just don't think this draft was relatively important to us. Just kind of besides getting those, strong, efficient players. I was excited about the Emmanuel Sanders signing, mainly because I was really irate when we didn't sign him last year. So much so that I kind of looked up like what the Niners gave up for him. And they gave a 3rd and a 4th round for him. And after that, they had a 1st round, 2 5ths, a 6th, and 2 7ths. And one of the 5ths was from the trade for Sanders. And if we had taken him, we would have had a 1st, 2 5ths, and a 6th. So I was like, you're telling me that Emmanuel Sanders is not worth 2 7th round picks? Because that would have literally been what the difference was. And then he just rubbed salt in the wound when he threw a touchdown against us last year. So I was happy about that. I don't understand Peyton's approach to wide receivers past Michael Thomas ever. I never liked Ted Ginn. Traquan, he's done better this season, but that just doesn't do it for me. There's been a lot of criticism of Sanders so far, but he kind of reminds me of Jared Cook last season, where it took him a little while to get going. And, he was kind of starting to click last game until Taysom Hill kind of, ruined the game for us. But it took Cook almost a half a season in order to get gelled with the offense. It's, somewhat surprising because they're both veterans. You'd think of all people, they'd kind of get it together. But it just kind of goes to show how complex the New Orleans offense is and why, drafting a rookie receiver out of LSU or whatever that some people wanted might have not been the best move, because there was just no way that they're going to kind of get that together. So that was kind of my favorite offseason move. I liked Malcolm Jenkins for the nostalgia purposes, just, the Super Bowl throwback.
Sure.
And I think that there needs to be somewhat of a veteran presence in our safety group. The Minnesota Miracle kind of sums that one up.
Yeah.
But, I thought we had a good offseason. There was a lot of offseason buzz. Probably our best move was re-signing Alvin Kamara at this point, because it's been the New Orleans Camaras thus far this season.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get that in a little bit. Before we move on to what's happened this season, I do want to talk about the backup quarterback situation. Besides Taysom Hill, and I don't even know if he's considered a quarterback at this point, you guys decided to move on from Bridgewater and get Jameis Winston. What were your thoughts on that move? Was it just kind of a matter of Bridgewater priced himself out with how well he played last year?
So I think Bridgewater earned it. I wasn't super excited. No one's excited when your number one player on your team goes down in week 2.
Right.
But I think he had a really rough go in Minnesota and kind of just deserved a starting role. And you can't really have a better interview for a starting position than what he did with 5-0 last season. And I don't think that he was going to be the quarterback of the Saints' future. So I was really nonplussed by that. It's pretty much the same reaction to Jameis Winston. I don't think our future quarterback's in the room. I just don't see Peyton having the patience to put up with 5 interceptions in a game. And, I know Brady's had some interceptions this season, and that's been a joke. And, he had LASIK eye surgery in the offseason, but there's only so much poor decision-making you can excuse away. And I just don't see Peyton having the patience for that. But as a QB 2-3, whatever is happening at this point, I think it's, the best we could have done for dirt cheap, basically. Yeah. So I don't think anyone knows what's going on in the quarterback room. Taysom Hill, I think it's pretty telling he hasn't been used as much on special teams, and he hasn't lined up as a tight end or anything that much this season. They've kind of just Steve Younged him in the back, but that's not really working either. So I'm team we're going to draft someone or make a trade. I just don't see it for either of them. But in terms of this season, I think that's pretty A+ for a quarterback room.
Yeah, and with all that being said, the Saints are sitting here at 1-2, Maddie, and they come off that opening season win against the aforementioned Brady and his Buccaneers, and they seem to be everybody's darling in the offseason. And then the Saints suffer back-to-back losses, first to the Raiders, then to the Green Bay Packers. And you look at Drew Brees' stat line. I mean, the guy is, 70% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns to just 1 interception. But there's so much talk about, is he kind of washed at this point? Do they need to go in a different direction? Is Drew Brees the problem in New Orleans? What's been the telling factor of their 1-2 start?
The 1-2 start to me is elsewhere from Drew. It would be the defense. So I'll get into that, but it doesn't help that Brees has definitely not played like he usually does. Not excusing any of this, but I just kind of think Drew is so specific with his routines and his preparation, and I can just see this whole muddled offseason just like not working for him whatsoever. I think the biggest issue, I don't think that he's washed up at this point. That happened with Peyton Manning pretty quickly, but I think his neck injury had a lot to do with that. I don't think that Drew trusts any of his receivers right now. It really goes to show you the value of Michael Thomas, especially when you consider that when Brees went down last season, Teddy Bridgewater and Thomas basically went off without a hitch. But now that we've lost the other half of that equation, it's not an exact causal, link between the two. But when a lot of people kind of looked back at that Raiders game, which was surprising and unsurprising, we always tend to play down to teams, and it comes back to bite us. We almost lost to the Cleveland Browns, if not for Zane Gonzalez last year. But a lot of those plays where it looked like flat out misses, the receivers just stopped running their routes, like the Josh Hill one in particular. He just stopped in the middle of the field. And I think a lot of Drew's, accuracy, it's kind of best on display when it doesn't look like any receiver is open and suddenly he throws right to that sweet spot. A lot of that has to do with the ball getting dropped where the receiver is supposed to be. And when he trusts his receivers and throws that before they're in the spot, then that's when everyone's like, oh my gosh, he's so accurate. How does he make these throws? But when you have receivers stopping halfway through the route and Brees is expecting them to be somewhere else, I just think that he is not confident in his receiving corp right now. And, I was a psychology major in college. We learned a lot about sports psychology, and not to get all wombo on this, but once you start kind of playing bad and not clicking, and then there's all this buzz that you're not accurate and not efficient anymore, wouldn't surprise me if he's kind of in his own head at this point. And I think he started to play a little better last week, and that was really when he started connecting with Sanders. I just think that I really hope Thomas is back this week. I know that he's going to try his damnedest to try to get back on the field, but I think if Drew can just kind of click with one receiver, he'll be more comfortable spreading the ball out. But he's just been holding on to it way too long and kind of unwilling to pull the trigger. And I don't think that's an athleticism thing. I think it's more of a mental thing at this point, more than anything else.
Well, you kind of mentioned it before. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about the Saints defense. Specifically, I kind of want to talk about that Raiders game because while I think anyone would forgive them losing that Packers game, Packers offense looks pretty darn good right now. I think the Raiders game was a bit of a surprise, and they hung 34 on the Saints in that game and pretty much controlled the entire second half there. So what's going on that side of the ball with the Saints? Why are they struggling? Because they really made some big strides on defense last year, it seemed like.
He ran 34 points up with a third string O-line at that. And the 129 penalty yards have a lot to do with it. That's literally more than a football field. So the DPI calls are just, and the defense is just playing sloppy. I don't know. And that was kind of like a positive in the first game when we won against the Bucs. We made really good defensive stops. And all of a sudden, it's like we reverted back to when Rob Ryan was the defensive coordinator. They overblitzed in the Raiders game, and they figured that out pretty quickly. And Carr just got rid of the ball pretty early. And we just don't have anyone on our team that can cover a behemoth tight end. So Darren Waller was just having a field day with our defense, but it's on, kind of all levels. Our pass rush is pretty non-existent. Cam Jordan has been basically, I don't know if someone abducted him because I literally haven't seen him the past 2 games. I mean, he's been double teamed, but Davenport, which is another kind of Saints player that everyone, he's a buzz player to say the least. He's always injured. We gave up a lot to draft him, but without his presence, we just can't really get any pressure on the quarterback. And so when you can't pressure the quarterback and they're, hanging out back there, and then our safeties can't cover the tight ends and our secondary, Marshawn Lattimore has like an ego issue, in my opinion, where if he's not covering an Amari Cooper or a Mike Evans, he just decides, oh, I don't need to show up today. And then it just plays really badly. I think Janoris Jenkins has outplayed him in spades, even though he's had a couple calls on him. It's just, I wish I had a better answer. I just think it's sloppy, undisciplined play, and just the penalty yards are just killing us. And, there's been a couple, most of our penalties last year were on the O-line, a lot of them on McCoy because he was in rookie center, and that kind of stalled the offense a lot last year. But these penalties on the defense are just quite literally giving up so much field. And then that ends up that they're on the field forever, and then they're all exhausted, and it just sloppy is all I have to say. And they need to go through some type of hazing ritual or something to get it together, because I just, with all the talent, it's maddening. You have Janoris Jenkins, you have Malcolm Jenkins, you have Cam Jordan, you have Lattimore. It's really embarrassing, to say the least.
Well, Maddie, you mentioned some names that popped up on the Saints injury report this week. So, just to run through some big names. Tight end Jared Cook, groin, no practice. Janoris Jenkins, the aforementioned illness, no practice. Marshawn Lattimore, limited with a hamstring. And Lions fans know everything about hamstring injuries these days. And of course, the big one is Michael Thomas and whether or not he'll be able to go. If you could get any of those guys back this week, minus Michael Thomas, because he seems to be like the straw that stirs the drink on offense, like which guy would you need out there for the Saints to feel comfortable about their defense?
Janoris Jenkins.
That's not super surprising because, I mean, his PFF grade bears out that he is one of like the top corners so far this year.
Yeah, and PJ Williams is just not going to cut it. And Stafford, so I've been worried about this game. Right when the schedule came out, I was like, we might lose to the Packers. It'll be the least surprising. I expected to probably be going into this 2-1. And this was my first expected loss of the season, if not the Packers game. You guys just have our card. Like, we beat you last time, but you guys beat us the last 3 times. And Stafford is just, I think he's extremely underrated. And if we lose Jenkins, the way that Lattimore has been playing recently, I just don't see PJ Williams being able to pick up the slack. I think that Jenkins has been the leader of the secondary at this point. And, illness at this point, it's probably not COVID because I think they have to say that there's a positive test.
Right.
But he could be symptomatic for all I know. I guess illness unspecified is probably the best, most optimistic person to play on Sunday. I like, in my opinion, unless it's COVID, if he's injured and it's Wednesday, give him a day off. But if he can't play on Sunday, I don't think that we have a shot, to be honest.
Really? What about Jared Cook? How big of an impact has he had so far this year? And do you have any sense of how serious his injury is? I know he didn't finish the game last week.
See the play where he went down. I probably had my head under my scarf like usual. But I think I like Jared Cook. I think when he's on, he's on. Like the 49ers game last year, he was just electric until he went out. I like Adam Trautman a lot, to be honest. So I think if Jared Cook is out, there is a feasible replacement for him. I don't think he's met his potential at this point either. And I just think, less criticism of him as more of the offense as a whole. But to me, he's less critical to the overall success of the game, specifically because there is some sort of replacement for him in Trautman. It'd certainly be better if he could play, especially if Thomas is out, just because you need to be able to spread out the double teaming on people. But he's been so this year, but so has everyone else. So
fair enough. Really quick before we head to our first break, let's kind of recap what the Lions injury report is. Basically, Wednesday's practice, the only guy who missed it was CJ Moore. Good news for Detroit is that Desmond Trufant is continuing to practice. It looks like he's trending towards playing in this game, which might mean something interesting for Jeff Okudah. Maybe he plays, maybe he's benched, considering his struggles through 2 weeks. Deshaun Hand popped up on the injury report. He has dealing with a chest injury. He's limited, though, so could potentially play this week. And then the only other guy on the injury report is Hunter Bryant, who is an undrafted rookie tight end, hasn't played yet. Even if he is active in this game, you can't imagine he'll play a big role. So the Lions actually coming into this game fairly healthy, which is a nice change of pace. Sorry that it had to come against your team, Maddie.
Whoa, hold on. Calvin's hurt?
Yes. Calvin, I don't remember what the J stands for. Yes.
Calvin Johnson Moore.
It's not Calvin Johnson Moore. All right, when we come back, we're going to get into the breakdown of this matchup. We're going to talk about how the Lions can maybe defend against one Alvin Kamara, if that's even possible. We'll see how this Saints struggling offense will match up against some of the Lions receivers and things like that. So stick around on First Bite. We will be right back. All right, let me just take a break to talk to our chat for a second. A lot of them wanted to see my dog, so Zazu's going to make a quick cameo. Come here.
Surprised my cat hasn't made a quick cameo by climbing over the...
All right, don't get tangled with my cord.
So is
Test. Yeah, it is.
Hello.
Yep.
Can everyone still hear me?
Yep. That's where we do like our podcasting, and we have our Twitch channel, and usually everything's from Discord though.
Yeah. Discord because I like the organization of Discord. Like if I miss 3 hours, we use like a Twitter DM, and if I miss that, it's like, oh, cute. It's like I have to scroll, and then someone will reply, and then it's back down to the bottom. Maybe I'll mention to them that we could probably benefit from a Discord. Just have like story ideas in one section, and like, it's the organization for me, really.
Oh yeah. So we use Slack for all of our writing stuff, but for playing video games and recording podcasts and
it's just
all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's a neat way to kind of reach out to a different subset of our group and be a little more personal with them, I guess. I don't know.
Like a subset of like your writing group, or like
the fans, really. Yeah.
Fan community,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know some people have joined one of our voice chats during the Lions games just so they can chat during the game. We do that for Thursday Night Football too. Just kind of a neat way to reach out in a way that writing doesn't quite do.
Sure, if we had a voice channel the last 2 years or 2 games, it would have been somewhere to be.
Would have been explicit, I'm sure.
I'm usually catatonic during these games, so wouldn't be me. But
I've been recently doing video streams while the games are going on, and it's really hard for me to not just get up and start pacing.
Yeah, my uncle leaves the house entirely. When we went to the Super Bowl, we had to literally go fetch him down the street to let him know that we won. I like to hide in closets. That's my MO when things aren't going well.
Nice. I like it.
I've done it at a bar before. Minnesota Miracle. I was in a bar closet.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
The bartender just comes in with a double shot of Jameson and just doesn't say anything. He's like, thank you.
Well, that's a good bar, though.
At least you've been put in a position to have your heart broken like that. I don't even know what it's like to be in that position before.
Yeah, have you guys ever gone to the Super Bowl?
No.
Oh,
no.
I've only been to one at a conference championship game ever.
Well, my dad's a Cleveland Browns fan, if that makes you feel any better. He told me that their over 5-0 record is the first time since 2016. He's like, if we just won one season opener, we'd have that.
Yeah. It's tough.
It's the little things.
It's the little things.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back into this so we can get you on your way here. Thanks for joining us again, though. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I have nothing better to do. I'm unemployed, so I literally have nothing better to do.
Hey, feel ya. All right, one sec. And we are back with First Bite, our preview podcast for Week 4 Lions Saints with Maddie Hudak. Thank you again for joining us. Let's get into the matchups here. Where do we want to start? Let's start with Alvin Kamara because, as you said, it's kind of been the New Orleans Kamaras for the first 3 games. That he's responsible, I think, for 6 of the team's 9 offensive touchdowns, 1 billion yards, 1 billion receiving and rushing yards. So, Maddie, is there any blueprint to stopping this guy, or do you just kind of like, if you can tackle him, then maybe you're going to be okay?
I don't even know, because I will never get over that picture from the Seattle Seahawks game where this guy was like ripping his jersey off trying to get him to stop. His balance, I don't know if you guys have ever seen his like off-season workout videos where he's like standing on a medicine ball and he's getting thrown like 3-sided colored things at him by this guy and has to catch him. It's unbelievable. You could really he's had as many touchdowns this season as he did last season. And my dad and I were arguing about whether he was injured last year, and I was very convinced. I'm like, he just went from being totally elusive to getting knocked over after 2 yards. And so once he heard that his knee and his ankle were all messed up, and then to see what he's been doing this season, I just think he's on fire. I think that your guys' best bet is if you see him lined up for a screenplay, blitz Drew and just try to get him to get a sack. Because I think if Alvin Kamara has the ball in his hands, it's just, maybe luck if you can manage to get him to stop. But it doesn't even look like he's running that fast half the time. Eric McCoy actually outran him on his touchdown run last week. It just seems like he's jogging. And it's nothing like I've ever seen before. So I think if you guys can contain him, then that's the game, because that's basically our game.
Well, if the aforementioned Michael Thomas makes an appearance, though, that's obviously going to change things up because, I mean, I know that he only had, 3 catches, I think, for 17 yards in the first game against Tampa Bay. Obviously didn't play in the last 2 games, but, I mean, just how big of a difference is he going to make in the Saints offense? And do you think that the Lions have any chance of stopping a 2-headed monster in Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara?
Well, yeah, so that's the thing is that when Thomas and Kamara are out there together, you just don't know what to do because Kamara is also such a good receiver that he can be lined up at the same time as Thomas, and you just don't really know what to do. I think if he doesn't make a difference, then that's our season, and we have no hope. But like I was saying before, where it was really obvious when Brees went down and Bridgewater just connected with Thomas like it was nothing. I just think having old reliable out there for Drew, he'll even if Thomas is triple covered, Drew will throw to him anyways. And he hasn't been throwing to singular covered receivers this season. And so, if nothing else, I just think getting Drew to actually pull the trigger on the ball will kind of just allow him to kind of get back into the rhythm of the game and start throwing to other people. But his absence has just been painfully apparent. And like I said, I think that Brees' confidence overall just diminished without him out there. He doesn't trust anyone to kind of run those shorter routes. And the whole deep ball threat thing that everyone's yelling about. Well, the thing is, Thomas doesn't run those routes. I don't think Drew can't throw them. I saw a good quote from him where someone asked about, the deep ball. He's like, it's not my job to, it's not his job basically to be everyone's fantasy team winner. It's his job to make good decisions and win games. And if those decisions are just boring 10-yard slants to Michael Thomas, then they are what they are. But I think if you have Thomas and Kamara out there, you can't triple cover both of them. So I just think his presence in general will just help a lot, hopefully.
Well, you answered my next question with the whole deep ball thing. I know that's probably got to be one of the more annoying things that you hear as a Saints fan. I'm sure Lions fan have their own version of something like that, and the Lions really haven't had a lot of deep ball success either until Kenny Galladay came back last week. So maybe you see something similar with that. Maybe it's not even just about having Michael Thomas out there, but maybe him being out there opens up opportunities for Emmanuel Sanders or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you got more on that, go ahead.
I was going to say, Sanders is just not a good wide receiver one. He plays way better in the 2 and slot position. So just that alone, having Sanders actually in a position that he is better at, I just think will be better as well.
Sure. All right, let's move over to the defense. I'm going to kind of slip our order up again here, and you kind of mentioned it before. Tight ends have been a huge problem for this team, and the Lions just so happen to have maybe even 2 tight ends. We just found out that Jesse James still does exist last week. He caught 3 passes, but obviously TJ Hockenson is the feature here. Hawkinson's coming off 3 pretty steady performances, about 50 yards in each game. Is there any hope for the Saints to stop them? And is this a long running problem, or is this just first 3 weeks of the season kind of thing?
Now I'm trying to think back. No, our problem has always been quick receivers, really.
Yeah.
Unless I'm totally blanking, but that's been like the redheaded stepchild of the Saints defense this season is just the tight end problem. And I like Hawkinson a lot. He was on my fantasy team last year and did wonders for me. We don't have a safety that has the size to be able to. Like Jenkins was covering Waller, and he's just a complete mismatch. Our linebacker group, I really don't know what's been going on with us, but the tight ends have been a huge problem, and I'm sure that will be their focus. The only thing I can think is if Jenkins is out, you guys probably will attack on the deep ball more, because if you have PJ Williams out there, it's just going to be too easy. But I mean, if we could clean everything else up and still not be able to defend tight ends, that might be one thing. But it's just been more of like an all-around problem. I'm going to definitely have to look more into that this week, because we just haven't been able to get it together. And then you saw New England just completely take down Waller, and it's like, what are we doing that is not working out there? We always tend to be really good at making a tackle right past the first down marker. And that's just kind of what I see happening this week is just the tight end running out there about 10 yards and just sitting down because that seems to work every single time for them. So this to me, the defense needs to start making some turnovers and interceptions because if they can't get their actual gameplay together, they need to just get off the field. It's my take on it.
Well, let's talk about the Lions' run game a little bit, especially matching up against New Orleans because you mentioned, the linebacking core for New Orleans is a little shaky at this point. They've only given up over 100 yards to one team so far, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. And I mean, only surrendering 98 rush yards to the Packers is something that would earn you a gold medal and a shout out probably in a local paper if you're the Detroit Lions defense. But that wasn't the case at all. When the Lions played the Packers, they threw up over 250 rushing yards on them. So can the Saints defense can it be attacked on the ground, or is it something where the Lions are really going to have to open up the offense and throw the ball a lot this week?
Yeah, I think that you guys it's going to be an aerial game on your end. Even though Cam Jordan's been relatively absent, it's more been that the issue with our pass rush has just been not pressuring the quarterback more so than not being able to stop the run. I think that Demario Davis, he's my favorite free agency signing of the Saints of all time to me. And I hope we might see some of Zach Bond finally, because he was someone, we traded a decent amount, up to get in the draft. And he was kind of seen as a steal, but we just haven't really used him. And I know he's smaller, and I think he's more of like a creative kind of use guy. And I just think that there's so many bleeding issues that they haven't had time to kind of deal with him. But I think if we have any saving grace on this team besides Kamara, it is our ability to stop the run. And I just think Stafford's just going to be salivating at our really bad secondary. And I just don't even see really a point in trying to win this game on the ground for you guys. If I were you, I'd throw it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I would agree with you, but I'm not sure that the Lions head coach would agree with you. He certainly likes to establish the run and just run the ball like crazy. He's got Adrian Peterson, which has to be his favorite player on the team because it represents the old school kind of football that Matt Patricia is absolutely obsessed with. So let me ask you a question, Ryan. Do you think there's any chance that the Lions actually do open the offense up against the Saints defense?
You mean not take full advantage of former Saints legend Adrian Peterson? I see Matthew Stafford throwing the ball quite a bit this game, actually. I think, if anything, I'm being really optimistic right now that the coaching staff is going to take what happened last week and they're going to try to implement it into their game plan. Be malleable, be able to change, be willing to adapt. I hope. Because everything Maddie's laying out right now is that the Saints secondary, if it is as banged up as it seems like it is, if it is as vulnerable because it lacks a pass rush, if Matthew Stafford has time to throw the ball, he makes really good decisions. It doesn't matter if you have good coverage or not. So I think where the Lions have run into problems recently, going back to even last year when Stafford was healthy, when there was a pass rush, it was tough for Stafford to do things. Sure. He is mobile. He can get out of the pocket. He can make throws on the run. But at the same time, he's just so much more comfortable operating in that pocket and hitting throws in rhythm and things like that. So I think if the Lions want to have success this week, they have to open up that playbook a little bit, and they have to throw the ball. But like you, I don't think it'll happen.
I was going to say, you're adorable. You're adorable right now.
I know. I'm so cute.
All right, with that, let's move to our last portion of the show, and that's our prediction. Maddie, we like to do a thing called One Thing We Think We Know. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a score prediction, doesn't necessarily be who wins the game, but if you want to give that, that's fine as well. But we like to predict one thing we're sure that's going to happen in this game. And to give you an example, last week I think I said I was sure that DeAndre Swift was going to be a huge part of the offensive game plan, and he played a total of 6 snaps that game. So I suck at this. So I'm going to make Ryan go first and hopefully come up with a better one this week.
All right. So right now, and I'm the resident gambling expert for the website, so I'm always looking at spreads. I'm always looking at over and unders. And right now, The over and under is set at 54.5. Something about me in this game just wants me to smash the under. And I never like betting on the under because betting on the under is just like choosing to eat prunes. Like, why? Why do that? That's not fun. Nobody enjoys that. And it's always just a really shitty ending.
Okay.
I didn't even mean to do that. I really didn't. Okay, but here's the thing. I think it's going to be an under. I think it's going to be like a ball control game. I don't think that the offenses are really going to open it up in a way because I think that the Saints are, even if they get Michael Thomas back, like it's not going to be this big aired out thing. It's going to be marching down the field, like these efficient drives where it's like 10, 11, 12 plays. They gash the Lions defense all the way down the field. They score a touchdown, and then it's, okay, Detroit, now you go try to score. And I think Detroit's going to try to do the same thing, but I think they're going to struggle with it a little bit. And I think maybe even the Saints might struggle with it a little bit if, the Lions do get Trufant back and if they can not be the worst pass rushing team in the entire NFL. But I just, with all that being said, I think that the game is going to be a lot slower paced. It's not going to be this aerial attack that I, kind of thought last week would be.
Fair enough. All right, Maddie, what's the one thing you think you know about Lions Saints week 4?
Contingent on whether or not someone from injury comes back. I think if Davenport plays, I think that we're finally going to be able to pressure the quarterback, and I say that the Saints will get 3 sacks this game.
There you go. How many do they have?
If Davenport's back.
If Davenport's back. All right.
They've had quite a few. Not really last game, but.
All right, you ready for this, Ryan?
I'm waiting for it. I'm on the edge of my chair, literally.
The one thing I think I know about Lions Saints is that DeAndre Swift will be a big part of the offense again. I'm going to do this every week. I'm going to do this every week now until it actually happens. Listen.
You can't think you know it into existence.
No, I can and I will. I really think they're setting something up. That they showed last week that Adrian Peterson is their workhorse back, but they can't keep DeAndre Swift on the bench forever. They can't put that guy on the shelf. They drafted him. They drafted him in the 3rd pick of the 2nd round. This is a guy they had big plans for, and I don't know if he's injured. I don't know if he was just a poor game plan against the Cardinals, didn't fit into what they wanted to do. But I think they're going to try to do their own little Kamara impression this week and utilize him against a linebacking core that has been struggling. I don't think he's going to be Kamara. I mean, I would love for him to have 150 yards and 70 rushing, but I think he's going to be more a part of the passing plan this week. Maybe the Saints are expecting the Lions to utilize TJ Hawkinson. They're like, you know what? He's a decoy this week. Let's slip out DeAndre Swift behind him and see if there's anyone over there. Big brain him.
Yay.
All right. All right, let's wrap up First Bite here. Maddie, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, what sort of things they can expect over at Canal Street Chronicles, that sort of thing.
We went over my Twitter before. You can find me at Canal Street Chronicles. I do also just do like profootballmania.com. I do a little bit of NFL analysis there. If you're looking for some cynical dry humor about the woes of the Saints, that's where you can find it in my nice little summaries of the putrid gameplay of the last few weeks.
Again, that's at Maddie Hudak. That's MADDYHUDAK _94 on Twitter. All right. And with that, we will say goodbye. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Again, you can join us for our post-game show after the game right here on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit. But until then, it's chaos. Be kind, everybody. All right. Cool. We're still live on Twitch, but the recorder is going to go off in a second here. If anyone has any questions for Maddie before we go, send them in now. Otherwise, we'll let you go here. 1 second. Let me get the...
Thanks again for doing this, Maddie. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Let's see what anyone is. Does NFC North play the NFC South this year? Yes, we do. We got the Bucks late in the year. Who else is in that division that I'm thinking?
Panthers
and
are pretty quickly out of the
Panthers
bye.
are right after the
Falcons.
Oh, yeah. Panthers and
Oh.
Falcons are. What do you think of the Falcons? How much are you enjoying the Falcons season right now?
They are the only source of joy I have had this season. They just keep, when you don't think that they can do it again, they just do it again.
Well, so that what's really funny about that, Maddie, though, is that the Lions are literally the Falcons' doppelganger. So, I mean, when you think that the Lions can't, screw the pooch again, they'll do it again.
I mean, nothing will top 28-3. It just won't.
No, I mean, nothing will.
Especially when I was in a room full of people that were all Giants fans, so they hated the Patriots, and I was just sitting there laughing hysterically the entire time.
Yeah, that had to have been high comedy. Like, there's a lot of value in that. I think that even as a Lions fan, like, I would rather not go to the Super Bowl than have what happened to the Falcons
100%.
happen, because they get dunked on mercilessly all the time on Twitter.
And their onside kick against the Cowboys was the funniest thing I have ever seen in my entire. It was like the ball was on fire. Like,
it's like, you can touch it, right?
Like, they saw ambush in the Super Bowl where the guy flubbed it into a Saints guy's hands, and they're like, "Oh, what if we just don't touch it?" Unreal.
Atlanta's season was funny and entertaining until they did it against the Bears last week. Then it was infuriating.
Oh, yeah. And they always seem to, the annoying thing about the Falcons is they'll suck all season and then make us look like idiots. So can't wait for those losses later in the season.
We call that Mitchell Trubisky versus the Lions. Sucks all season and then he's literally thrown 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in 3 straight games against the Lions.
Yeah.
Now he's not even an NFL quarterback.
Nick Foles. Rough.
Yeah. Josh Mercer says, after watching a good receiving back like Kamara who can do it all, do you think Swift has what it takes to be on the same role, more so based on his college performance because he hasn't gotten much playing time in the NFL so far? Ryan, you want to take that?
Well, Jeremy thinks he knows that DeAndre Swift is going to do his best Kamara impression, but I don't know. Like, Kamara he's got juice. Like, he's got juice like few guys do. And I think that was a really good point that Maddie made in the segment when we were talking about Kamara and whether or not he was injured last year, because he just didn't look like the same player. Like, he looked, off balance, like she had mentioned. He didn't really have that elusiveness, that ability to escape tackles and things like that. So I would hope that you would take a second round pick, 3rd overall in the second round, and expect him to be at least a nice, like, knockoff version, or like a replica version, like the version that you bought from China.
Like the Detroit Lions to the Falcons, basically.
Sure, yes.
Kind of, yes. Yes, essentially.
Do you have an opinion on DeAndre Swift, Maddie, or are you not that familiar with him? I know you said you don't watch college too much, and neither do I, so don't feel bad about that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be like Kamara. I think that, like, he will just play like they'll have no one to compare him to, because it's just so bizarre but fun to watch. He's just so fun to watch. So
yes, in 15 games this season, he's going to be very exciting to watch. -1.
What do you mean in 15 games?
Just not this one. I'm not going to be
excited.
What? Let me ask your thoughts on his contract extension, since giving running backs money has been such a controversial topic for analytic people. I know he's kind of a different beast because he's such a big receiving threat, whereas other running backs are just runners. But was there any hesitation for you? It was just like, I don't know if we should give him his money.
No, and it sounds biased because he's like on my team or whatever, but like you said, he's so much more than just a running back. He's the Saints' leading receiver currently, which says a lot.
Yeah.
I just don't think you come around guys like him very often. Like Ezekiel Elliott is an incredible player, but he's not the first of his kind.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that he's replicable. And if anything else, people are literally like saying that he deserves a raise after the last 3 games. But my favorite take that I saw after his extension was one of the analysts said, Kamara is a perfect example of why you don't draft or pay running backs. I'm like, how exactly then are you supposed to acquire a running back? We drafted him in the 3rd round of 2017. He's had, again, I'm willing to overlook last season just on it. Like, I know it's only been 3 games, but he's been so good this season that it was just so clear that he was injured last season, and he's not particularly injury prone either, knock on wood. He was injured last season and then just, I think, kept playing through it, and that's just not really how one heals an injury. But, he's not like made of plastic or, paper bones or whatever. And I think especially once Drew is gone, we're not going to solve the quarterback issue right away. So he's going to kind of be the guy in the future. So I don't hate it at all.
Another question from our chat: how is covering teams while winning different from covering teams losing? It seems like it must win almost every week. Does it feel like that?
Covering like me covering them?
Yeah, or just rooting for a team that's actually good.
I've said this is my first year kind of writing immediate reactions to a game, and there's nothing I've liked doing less than that when they lose. I have nothing intelligent to say. I am uninspired. I usually will turn a game off if it's that bad, and now I have to sit there and dissect how bad we're doing.
Yeah.
Like I said, the only thing I could find of it is like a sense of humor. If there's anything I've learned from my dad as a Browns fan, it's that you really just have to lean into the poor playing at some point. So
100%.
If we start having a bad season, it's just going to be the Canal Street roast over here, because that's the only thing I can do to enjoy myself.
What about when the team's winning? How about just like your personal nerves going into a game? Like, is it like nerves are high every single game, or is it like, we're gonna, no matter what happens, we're gonna be like 12-4 at the worst because we're the Saints? Like when they were riding that high for a while.
It's the Saints. Have you watched a Saints game? You can never go into one and be. This was the thing I said about week 1. I'm like, I don't remember the last time I comfortably watched a football game.
Fair enough.
Like our opener last year against the Texans came down to a 53-yard field goal with 2 seconds left. And we just can never comfortably win a game. We're just, it's always back and forth. It's never enjoyable. I always have anxiety. I was actually glad when Drew went down last year, because I was like, wow, I can just kind of watch and have no expectations of anything going right. And then I was so pleasantly surprised.
So the key to Saints fans cool. is low expectations.
Yeah, and blood pressure medication.
I was going to say, I mean, it must be nice to have your starting quarterback go down and you have like another starter come in, because we tried that, the whole like no expectation things for half a season, and it turned into like Jeff Driscoll, David Blau.
0-8.
0-8. Getting embarrassed by the Bears on national television. It was not fun. Don't recommend it. But
yeah, I mean, everyone was like, what the hell is wrong with Sean Payton? Like, why did he just sign Teddy Bridgewater to this big of a contract when he has Drew Brees? Like, what is he thinking? Blah, 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 blah. And then like a self-fulfilling prophecy, Brees goes down and Payton's just sitting there with this grin on his face. Like, oh. And then they go 5-0, and we were like, oh, okay, well, if we can go 2-3 during this, like, we still have the chance. And then that happened, and so I mean, I don't know how we got away with signing Jameis Winston to like dirt and pennies this season, but even if we had to pay him a lot, like after last season, I'm like, when you're a team that's like in win now mode and you're running out of time, you just really don't have you can't have I'm trying to think of a Mike Glennon as your backup quarterback and expect to be able to carry on as usual.
Good pull. I like that pull.
You can't have a guy who's all neck playing quarterback for you.
Speaking of Sean Payton, Uncle Indigo wants to know if you'd be open to trade Sean Payton for Matt Patricia straight up.
Straight up?
Yeah, right? That seems fair.
Usually trades involve someone getting something out of both sides.
Oh.
No offense, but Sean Payton is a wizard with his ability to manipulate the cap with Loomis, his draft approach, his complex. He's a class 1 coach to me. And if the Cowboys weren't able to poach him 19 times in a row, then it's just never going to happen. But you guys enjoy Matt Patricia.
We're trying. We're really trying. All right, I think we're good on chat here, so we're gonna close it out. Thanks again, Maddie. Appreciate you joining us. Good luck on Sunday. Oh, I think I saw your cat for a second. Oh, there it is. Oh,
sitting on the wrong chairs that have been sent to us 3 times that just sit in the corner. So
nice. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. Thanks to Chat for joining us for the session. And we'll be doing our Man Sim on Saturday. So come back then. And then our post game on Sunday. Good night, everybody.